Bruno Savoy. I have a question about past lives. I really want to understand how people start to think about past lives. For example, if you asked me to go back earlier and earlier in my memory, no matter how much I tried, I would not remember anything before this life. I could make something up, but I would never ever fool myself that this is real. I understand that maybe Scientology says that anything you think of is actually something you lived before, and or those may be the memories of your BTs. Please let me know if this is wrong. Perhaps these explanations are how they get around the problem of making it up, quote unquote, but I still don't understand how you can go about looking into your past lives. For example, Grant Cardone says that he knows he is an immortal spiritual being because he went back and looked in his past lives. He knows who he was, what he did. Can you help me understand this process? Nothing is impossible in life, but I feel like I would never be able to convince myself that what I am making up as I go are my past lives. Thanks you for sharing your thoughts. Bruno's a great question, and really it does have to do with engaging imagination and then reframing it as reality. That's really about the simplicity of what's going on in Scientology auditing with past lives. The way it works, and you hinted at and seem to have looked into this and understand that there are different explanations or ways that they can talk about it. But in an auditing session, let me tell you my subjective experience of it, or how I have also, as an auditor, dealt with pre-clears who I was auditing when it came to past life stuff. And really, this is a matter of a viewpoint indoctrination, you could say. You know, when I first went into Scientology and was doing auditing, I wasn't, jumping into past lives or thinking that that was really a thing either. But what happens is during the auditing session, you're asked questions or given commands, and those are going to take you through a subjective, memory process of going back in time through painful incidents of stress, trauma, pain, unconsciousness, etc. That's your kind of ideal picture of what you're doing with Dianetic auditing and with quite a bit of Scientology auditing. You're looking for bad stuff that's happened in the past, and you go back and sort of revivify or relive it. And that's what you do. And the idea is that by going over and over these things in your past, you will release the trauma or charge or anxiety or however you want to refer to it that is pent up in that. And by releasing that pent up energy, it frees up your, that you're no longer stressed or anxious or freaked out or whatever about that past thing, and it will no longer have any power or hold over you. This is not how our memories work. This is not how our brain works. And this sort of idea of how you go back and relive things and take away stress or trauma. That's not how this works. Okay, we've learned a lot since 1950 when Hubbard wrote Dianetics about the brain and the mind and how it deals with trauma and stress and memory, especially. We've even done podcasts here where I interviewed a neuroscientist about memory, specifically so we could talk about some of this stuff. Now, with the past lives, I just wanted to kind of put that whole disclaimer there because I don't want people thinking that this stuff is useful, because it's not. It's the exact opposite of useful. Okay, now as far as the past life stuff goes, what you do is you develop it like a Polaroid picture, if you all remember those things, right? There's those little pictures you wave in the air that would come out of the Polaroid camera, and they'd be instant, You find. Okay, let's look at a real example. Let's say that you have a Dianetic session where you have recalled a time where you got bit by a dog. And it was when you were 20 years old and this dog came running up and bit you, and it wasn't any fun. And you go through that whole thing and you're still not particularly feeling wonderful or great, So Hubbard says, you go earlier. You look for an earlier similar time when you were. And then the phrasing is going to be whatever the pre-clear, whatever the person says the phrasing of, the incident or the trauma is. So it might be bitten by a dog, or it might be that you got bit, or it might be that you had a run-in with an animal. It could be any kind of description. that might fit that general kind of incident. So let's say, there was can you recall an earlier similar time when you were bitten? Let's just put it that way. That's the chain, is every incident is going to be connected by the fact that there's a bite. You got bitten. So this one is, it got bitten by a dog. You go earlier and you go, oh yeah, well, I got bitten by my hamster when I was 7. And you go, great, okay, let's take a look at that. Yeah, he bit my finger, and you kind of go back, okay, good, go back to when you were 7 years old, and okay, good, what's happening? And you kind of run through it as though you're re-experiencing it right now in the here and now. And you go through it and through it and through it, and you're still not feeling really great. And, now you've kind of run the course of that incident, and now it's time to find an earlier one. So the auditor says, is there an earlier similar time when you were bitten? And the auditor now will probably, unless this is a book 1 Dianetics session, which is a rather primitive affair, where you run Dianetics based on the book, Dianetics to Modern Science Mental Health. Dianetics was updated and now uses an e-meter. And the e-meter might be utilized during the course of the auditing to help the person find the earlier similar incident. The auditor's looking at the needle on the dial, and it might jump from, every now and again, and in a particular way. And so the auditor goes, oh, what's that thought? That, right there, that, right? And every time the auditor is saying that, right there, that, what's that thought? See, now you're directing the person. Now the guy goes, oh, I don't know. I don't know what that thought is. Okay, just keep looking. Let's just keep looking here, okay? Is there an earlier similar time you got bit? Boink, that. What's that? And the guy goes, oh, I don't know, fur. I don't know, fur. I get the idea of fur. Okay, great. Let's take a look at this. Let's develop this. Let's see what else is there. What about this fur? What color is the fur? Does it feel like any kind of fur? Is it long hair, short hair, medium hair? Like, how would you describe this fur? Tell me more about it. And you try to get more details, more data from the person. And the guy goes, oh, man, this fur. Yeah, well, it kind of feels a little coarse, a little rough. I don't know, but I can feel it. So I must have my hand on it or somehow be able to feel it. I don't know, though. I'm not really sure what else I'm seeing here. All right, fair enough. Well, let's just take a look at this fur. That right there, right? Because the guy, remember, the auditor's looking at the meter. Needles bouncing, right? Okay, what's that? What's that thought? And the guy goes, oh, fur, okay, well, maybe it's some kind of animal. I think, wow, this is kind of weird. What's so weird? Tell me, what are you seeing there? Well, this animal, I see this thing, but I don't understand this at all because I've never seen anything like this. Well, that's totally fine. Listen, just tell me what comes up when I say that. Okay, that right there. What's that thought? Oh, that's the animal, and it's actually got 6 legs. Really? Okay. Well, let's take a look at that some more. Tell me more about this 6-legged furry animal. And slowly, details emerge. Because the auditor demands that details emerge, and he's with or without the meter. Now, I'm using the meter as an example here because it's often used this way, and I wanted to show you how that is used. But this works whether you have a meter, with a needle jumping or not. You can still direct the person. Whether you're using an e-meter, you can still say, okay, well, is there an earlier similar time you got bit? Well, I don't know. I mean, I sort of see this thing with fur. Okay. Well, what kind of fur? What is it? Any kind of fur? Is it white? Is it brown? Is it black? What does it look like? Tell me more about it. Are you above it, below it? What's your relationship to it? And in other words, through questioning, you're going to develop this idea, and you don't let it go. You're kind of like you just keep working on this thing, right? And until it works out. Now, it doesn't always work out that way. Maybe the person goes, you know what? This is total bullshit. This isn't a thing. And I did that. Sometimes stuff would come up and I'd be like, this is nothing. This doesn't make any sense at all. I don't think this is an answer to the question. And after enough time, the auditor might go, all right, well, Good. Let's go ahead and dump that. And let me ask you again, is there an earlier similar time you got bit? And now you're going to start the hunt all over again. But there is no option to not find an answer to the question. And the auditor is there to direct and guide the pre-clear, using the meter or not, to get an answer to the question. And the technique is that there is an earlier similar incident if the pre-clear in front of you is not happy, has a floating needle on the e-meter, is very good indicators, they say. In other words, very happy, smiling, joyous, right? If those things aren't happening, then you're not done with this chain of incidents that you need to go down and go earlier, similar, until you get to what is called the basic. And basic incidents on things like getting bit are definitely going to be, millions and billions of years down the line. So you could get all kinds of mileage on this, right? It's not the case, though, necessarily that you have to run all millions of years of getting bit. You just got to run this thing until you get the floating needle and the, oh, wow, yeah, okay, I feel so much better now kind of thing. Okay, that's what you're going for. And as soon as that's hit, we're done with the chain and it's over. So that's how past lives are in this. That technique of developing it like a Polaroid picture, or, sort of hinting and beating around and trying to find what's there and what's not. Those things are just standard. Any kind of auditing a person might get, those things might come up or be done. There are other things, by the way, that the auditor can do in order to help the person develop this picture or find this incident. For example, using the meter, they can date the incident, right? You might have a person who's having a real hard time trying to find this thing, or it's not clearing up, or there's something unclear about the incident. And Hubbard said that bad dating or bad timing, and also not correctly spotting the location of the incident, where it happened, these two things can hang them up and keep them floating there in time and keep you stuck to them. So the meter can sometimes be used to isolate what date the incident actually occurred on. And it's through a process of narrowing and elimination, greater than, lesser than, asking questions of the meter, that you narrow it down. You might first establish the order of magnitude. Is this date, days, months, years, tens of years, hundreds of years, thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, tens of millions of years, hundreds of millions of years, progressively through the orders of magnitude until you get the meter to react on the one that you ask. Is it tens of millions of years? Oh, it is tens of millions of years. Okay, I'd like to indicate this date is tens of millions of years ago. So you get working them over until you get it, and then you narrow it down until you get the exact date or time, all the way down to the second. You can actually take it from tens of millions of years all the way down to the second of how long ago was this incident. And the person doesn't have to say a thing. The meter is what's used to get the answers to the questions. The same thing applies in terms of location, right? In which direction is this? How far away is it, right? Where is this located? And the person might say, oh, it was in Australia and feels great. Or they might need it down to the millimeter of, okay, I'd like to, you're using the meter, you narrow it down until you get the exact, half-inch location in space and time of where this thing happened, right? So the meter plays a big part in this, is kind of the point I'm trying to get across here. And the thing I also would like to say right now about the meter while we're talking about this is that those reactions the auditor is saying, what's that thought? That's mostly random. That's the crazy thing about that meter, is it is a randometer, and it's not measuring your thought, not anywhere near the way that Scientologists are led to believe it does. So all of this is just being built on top of fallacy after fallacy after fallacy. 1, the existence of past lives. 2, the workability of the e-meter. 3, the workability of the technique. 4, the fact that incidents go in chains like this. I mean, all of this stuff is Hubbard inventions or twists and corruption of, standard psychotherapy or old school psychoanalysis. So that's where all this stuff kind of comes from, and that's what it looks like. And I hope that answers your question. And let me know if you want any more information about that.